Hope everybody's doing well. It's in time for another edition of the Online Dinner Party, a show that I do every Wednesday where I bring in artists, definitely fellow creatives and entrepreneurs and educators and a number of other folks, and we just learn from each other and all along those lines. So, as many folks know, I work at the Hayti Heritage Center. We've had a lot of events going on the last couple of weekends. We had the Apollo folks there on about a week and a half ago, so they were coming in and traveling. I think they were at Bennett last week, and this particular week, about a week and a half ago, they were here at the Hayti Center. And then, of course, we had the Poetry Slam and Gina Lauren this past weekend and everything like that. So there are always exciting things happening at the Hayti Heritage Center here in Durham, North Carolina. And, of course, there are exciting things happening around Durham in general and the Triangle area and all along those lines. So definitely always bring in interesting guests. As a matter of fact, Hayti Village was just recently dedicated, and that took place this past week and everything like that. So it's about a week ago that took place, and it was very interesting having that conversation and hearing how they're going to have developments and all along those lines. So I'm hoping that either on this show or on another show, James Montague may be coming in, who's one of the developers of that project, which is near Hayti and all along those lines. We're interested in hearing what folks have got to say about a number of things, but a main thing that's happening in Durham, North Carolina, as well as just around the South, is it is very hot and everything like that. So I'm not sure how it is in the West Coast where Tiffany's at. So I'm gonna bring her in first, but I've also got Monte, who is a performer, and I'm gonna find out more about where he came from, because I know that he's definitely been involved in education and a number of other things and using art as an education tool. And I think Tiffany's been doing the same thing. So we'll bring her in first, and we're also gonna see if Joe Rose is going to join us, who is an aerialist, and I invited her to come as well. So we'll see if she shows up or not, and all along those lines. But I'll bring in Tiffany first and hear how things are going in your neck of the woods, because I don't know about where you are, but here in Durham, North Carolina, it is hot as all get out. I think we hit like around 93 yesterday. I think it was 95, and of course that means it feels like 100 and everything like that. So how are you doing? And if you can share a little bit about yourself, because I know that Eris has provided us with some amazing guests from the West Coast and even some from Hawaii, where she had spent some time, but I know that she bounces between California and Hawaii and other places as well. So just share a little bit about your experience and how things are going in your neck of the woods, which I believe is there on the West Coast and all along those lines. So I'm definitely interested in hearing more about your journey and how you're even using education, because I understand from Eris that you are a multi-talented person. I know that there is a gentleman that was one of the founders of the local John Avery Boys and Girls Club, and in the mural that's upstairs, they described him as a multi-dimensional man, which in my mind is just another words of saying a Renaissance man. And definitely there are Renaissance women, and the way Eric is describing you, I would describe you as a Renaissance woman, because it sounds like you are multi-talented and involved in a lot of things, not just music, but probably also fashion and art and a number of other things as well. So share a little bit about yourself and just introduce yourself to our listeners and fans here on the Online Dinner Party.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. I'm a model actress by trade, full time model actress, really, by trade now. And I also just started getting into producing. So I mostly work in fashion and editorial modeling. In the acting side of it, I've mostly worked in background and commercial acting so far. I've done a couple of gigs in film, but I'm looking to get more into that. But I'm mostly, yeah, on the fashion side of it. I love art. So to me, fashion is a form of art. And doing fashion photography and model photography, getting a chance to put that all together with the fashion, the makeup artistry, the hairstyle artistry of it, and watching it all come together, that's definitely where my passion is with
Well,
it
that
and what
makes
I love doing about it so far.
that makes
But
a lot
I'm
of sense.
actually based in the East Coast right
Okay,
now. I'm over in Maryland.
okay.
So I live in Allegheny County in the northwest corner of Maryland. So it's kind of in the mountains in the Appalachians.
Right.
So we just started getting the warm weather. We've been happy with it. We hit 90 and we were like, thank you, God.
I know that's right. We've not been all that happy with the hot weather here and all along that line, but I know that there is a famous fashion person that is from Durham, North Carolina, and everything like that. And he passed away a few years back. That being Andre Leon Talley, who was very much involved with Vogue and everything like that. But I know that he was an advocate of making sure that there were more minority voices in the fashion industry and all along those lines. And with a name like Rodriguez, I can tell that you're probably of Latin American background and everything like that. So how are you feeling that we're doing in terms of having representation in the fashion industry and all along those lines? Because there are definitely some well-known models. I mean, I can think of Iman if I want to go back in time, and even some more current ones like Hadid that I believe has got some Muslim roots and everything like that. But I was just wondering how you think we're doing in terms of representation, because I know Andre Leon Talley, who was definitely a major person with Vogue and went to both North Carolina Central University and Hillside, which is one of our predominantly African American high schools here and everything like that. That was kind of what his mission was, among other things. But just wondering your take on how we're doing in terms of representation.
I think in terms of representation, we've definitely grown in the fashion world. I see a lot more of minority owned businesses when it comes to minority owned studios, minority that are, whether they're photography studios or whether they're makeup artist studios, and more minority producers actually getting into the industry as well when it comes to the fashion shows, especially in areas like New York and on the West Coast and Cali, I believe too. So I think it's grown. I think it's grown a lot more than it used to. Diversity has become a big thing in the modeling world, whereas we used to only be able to be 5'7", to do runway and have to have a super skinny body and certain looks with our features. But now I think that's opened up a lot. I had a chance to do the Miss Petite USA pageant back in 2023 and represent a Miss Petite Florida, because I was in Stuart, Florida at that time. And I saw a lot of diversity in that pageant, from models and women that came from all corners of the world. It's really nice to see how it's grown, how much it's grown in the last 20 years, especially.
Yeah, it's definitely been growing a lot and everything like that. I'm gonna bring in Monte, hear some of his thoughts around development and stuff like that, because he is a artist that I met, and I know he considers himself a multidimensional as well. And we'll have some conversations with him and learn more about what he's got going on and everything like that, because I think he's done stuff in both the music industry as well as a educator and a number of other things also. And I know that you are currently in the Triangle area of North Carolina and everything like that, but I'm not sure what your roots are and everything like that, because some people came here. I know that Ninth Wonder, who was a major hip hop artist, just got his degree, even though he's got a long history of doing work and everything like that. But he just finally completed his degree at North Carolina Central University and graduated this past weekend and everything like that. So I just wondering your take on how you got involved in the entertainment industry.
Well, I honestly believe I was kind of born into it. So I was born in Chapel Hill, but mainly raised in Durham. But before I was able to settle down in Durham, I bounced around a little bit to country areas, a couple of the states around North Carolina, before my parents both eventually settled down in Durham. Um, yeah, and as far as getting involved in entertainment on those trips, driving back and forth, my parents were separated, so I'm always in the car since I'm a baby. And when I'm a baby and I'm in the car, there's not much I can do. Look out the window and listen to the music. So boom, music was always there. Of course, the TV was kind of always there. I mean, you know, um, then the internet starts coming about. It's just super accessible. And as soon as I figured out, I was in third or fourth grade and I got an MP3 player. As soon as I figured out, oh, wait, there's a voice recorder on here. I first started recording the songs that I like from the radio, but I eventually realized, wait, I could do that. And when I realized that, I was already writing, I got into writing in first grade, but already writing stories. And I guess to introduce myself, the best way I could really describe myself is I'm a griot or a storyteller. And I just have different mediums that I kind of use to tell stories. And a lot of times stories have lessons or themes. And through these themes, we can teach people. So I've started to educate through those lessons that I can integrate into stories. And so I started off just listening and I figured out I could do it. And I just try to get better at doing it, one thing at a time. So writing was first, then I started recording music, and that was a long process, if we're being honest. But eventually, you start to realize I need more resources. I can record, but I'm tired of using YouTube beats. I can't profit off of it. I can't really put it out. So now I had to learn how to make instrumentals, and then I had to learn how to mix, because just because you have instrumentals, well, now everything has to balance out. You know, just growing from there. Then I need music videos. Well, I could reach out to somebody, but I'm a creative. I can write a music video, and then, well, shoot, if nobody else can shoot it for me, I could shoot what I can shoot, and eventually just dipping my hands in different baskets. I started to get involved in community and find people that did some of the same things I did. And all of a sudden I was able to start using teamwork, which I've learned is definitely the way to go. You can get a lot more accomplished when you're not trying to do everything alone. But oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That makes a lot of sense and everything. In that same realm and everything like that, Tiffany, how did you get involved in the fashion industry? Was it something that you always wanted to do when you were a youngster, or is it something that came about later in life and you decided to go into this field? Because like you said, there was a stereotype that used to exist that you had to be a certain height and be a very tall woman, but I'm seeing more petite women that are modeling. You're seeing different sizes and shapes and a lot of ways that people are being represented now and everything like that. So what got you into modeling, and what made you decide to go this route of being a model and actress, and even involved in some of the other things in terms of producing?
Well, when I was younger, no way. I had no idea. When I was younger, yeah, I kind of thought about those stereotypes and, was always told that getting into the entertainment industry, being a singer, being a dancer, being a model, those aren't real jobs. So I was more of an academic when I was younger. I grew up in Jersey City and grew up in the Jersey area my whole life until I hit my 20s and moved to Florida. So I was used to having to make sure I was able to get out of my area and get out of my circumstances, and school was the way to go. Being an academic and getting into something like healthcare, which is what I decided to get into, healthcare management. I started in nursing and worked my way up to medical billing and administrative, doing healthcare management. And I managed and owned a practice management and medical billing company for 11 years before I jumped into the entertainment industry. It was actually on a complete whim. After giving up the healthcare industry career, I really had to decide, okay, what do I want to do that I actually enjoy doing, not just happen to be good at? We can kind of push ourselves through school and our whole school and academic career to be good at a certain thing, and have these hidden talents and hidden passions that we just see as dreams and we don't know can really come true. So it wasn't until I let go of the healthcare career, it was after COVID happened. We went through COVID, and all of a sudden, all of the hospitals and offices had to start being shut down and transition to remote care, and everything went telehealth. And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare to try to combat and try to navigate as a business owner at that time in the healthcare industry. And I went through a lot of burnout and just overwhelming, and really decided that that wasn't where my passion was. That wasn't really what I really wanted to do. So when I gave up everything and let go of the business, I started doing a couple of modeling jobs just for fun. I had done one or two when I was in my 20s, when I was 21. And back then, never really thought of anything of it. I thought, I don't know if this is for me, because I had just done modeling as a music video as one of the background girls in a Sean Kingston video back then. And then, yeah, years later, being a 33-year-old woman that's only 5'2", I'm a Latina, I don't have the BBL like most of the younger models did that were in the industry when I started in it at the time. I was really nervous and concerned if it was something that I could really do. So I just jumped in it as side gigs, honestly. Just little side jobs I was picking up at the time to decide what I was going to do for my next business. And one job led to another job, led to another job. As Monty was saying, I think getting more into the community side of it, getting more into networking with these professionals that do actually do this for their full-time job, that's what really made me start to have a fire under me and give me that passion and say, okay, I could take the same things that I did with my company, with Web I Bill, with the healthcare management company, and turn myself into a brand and do this as a business. And once I did that, once I really stopped saying, oh, I can't do this audition because I have to go to work, or I can't work on doing a bunch of castings today or go out and do a shoot today because I have to go to this job. Once I stopped doing that and I started treating it like a real business, the way I did with my first business, that's when things kind of took off. That's when I came up with formerly known as Tiffany and said, yeah, this is what I want to do full time.
That makes a lot of sense. And this is for both you and Monte. And I'd love to hear both of your thoughts around this because it's something I talk about on this show quite often with a variety of the guests and everything like that. But how do you manage that work-life balance and everything like that? Like, I don't know either of your statuses in terms of family, whether you have children or whether you have a significant other and all along those lines. But I know that whether you do or you don't, that work-life balance can be an interesting thing because even in my own situation, I am a true Renaissance man and have a multitude of jobs because I work at HeyTaz, I mentioned earlier, but I'm also involved with this podcast network and everything like that. But I also work with a testing company, and then I do my own event planning and all along those lines. So it can be interesting even as a single man in his 60s that is dealing with that work-life balance. But how do you two deal with that work-life balance and all along those lines? Like I said, I don't know your status within in terms of family and everything like that, but how do you manage that work-life balance?
Go ahead, Monte. You go first.
Okay, I was gonna say I like some of the things you touched on, Tiffany, because you started with mentioning the first company that you built, but you found that that wasn't truly your passion. And so once you started treating your passion like it was the job, things started changing. And that's kind of the space that I'm in. I've been transitioning the past year or so into that space. And I think that I found you find yourself with a little more free time when that's the case, but then you also find that the job is quite difficult. But and it still takes a lot of time. But when it's in a direction that you're interested in going and that you've been wanting to go for so long, I think the work starts to feel a lot less like work and more like purpose. Like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So it's not so much of a hindrance, And that's kind of my take. Some of the things I've been doing to try and, through this transition to try and get that balance is I started using the calendar a lot more. The calendar on my phone, but also a physical one. And then I got like a daily task sheet. So I've been trying to just check off boxes. I'm not super consistent every single day, but anything that helps, I'm just taking the tools and putting them together until I find my perfect formula.
Absolutely, Monty. I agree. And I think that it's exactly that. It becomes more once you are doing something you really love, it's not more of oh, I got to get up and do this today for work. It's I get to do this today. And being able to have that opportunity to have more of a work-life balance. Because for me, I'm a single mom. I've been a single mom for 8 years now. And I have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, so they keep me pretty busy.
For sure.
But being in the office 80 hours a week with my old job and my old career versus the type of life that I get to do now with them, with being in the entertainment industry as a model actress, is completely different. I feel like it honestly gave me more work-life balance because exactly like Monty said, I realized through going through that learning process and just that transition of it, that I had more freedom. I had more freedom and I felt like I had more time to work on something I wanted to work on. I had more time to focus on my kids and being adhered to their schedules and spending more time with them during the week and on the weekends. And it gave us a chance to do a lot of more family things together. For example, being an entrepreneur and running your own business, we're able to take our kids with us to a lot of events and a lot of things that we're working on. We're able to let our kids see live what their parents are doing and how they're building these brands and businesses. And I think it does a lot for them. It encourages them. It helps them explore their passions. My daughter wants to be an international pop diva one day. She's into K-pop and she dances and sings. and she wants to do all of that one day. So I think her seeing mom follow her passion and being able to see it live is something that's going to help her in the future to say, okay, if I want to do this, I can do it no matter what the world says.
Yeah, that
Love
makes a
that.
lot of sense. In that same realm and everything, another thing that we talk about quite a bit on this show, and not just this show, but some of the other shows on this network as well, is this notion of the imposter syndrome. Because I am a person that is very guilty of it and everything like that, whether it has been in romance or whether it has been in careers where I have talked myself out of jobs and talked myself out of opportunities, whether that was on the romantic side or on the career side and everything like that. So I know for a fact because I've met Monte in person that he's very confident, and you sound very confident as well, Tiffany. But how do you get past that imposter syndrome, which is very common? That notion of talking ourselves out of things and all along those lines. So how do y'all get past that? Because it's a very common thing that happens in society where we will find reasons not to go for opportunities, whether that's a job or whether that's a project or whether that's a number of other things that are out there. So how do y'all deal with that imposter syndrome?
Oh goodness, that's the biggest struggle, right? Because like Monty said, when you're really trying to go with your passion as your main gig and your main business and the bills are rolling in, and you're not at that level that you want to be yet, that's the biggest thing to get past is the imposter syndrome. To say, okay, I'm not gonna give up yet. I'm not gonna give up and start focusing my time and my energy on this instead. I had to really build that confidence in myself and really believe in myself and kind of learn different parts of the industry when it came to the modeling, acting, and producing, even with getting into knowing artists like Monte and getting into knowing music artists like that. I've learned so much in the last 3 years of what goes on when it comes to the behind the scenes and the production work. And once you start to dip into those kind of things and learn how to do a lot of it yourself, I think it makes it easier to build up that confidence and say, okay, I'm learning and adapting more skills now. I'm growing in this. So there's a lot more that I can do on my own, and finding that right team to kind of build you up and be
Mhm.
there to help you as your mentors, as your coaches. I have some friends of mine that are other models that kind of found their mentors. Erin Turpin is a great model that I worked with for the LH Lux Beauty Awards, and he does a lot with New York Fashion Week. And he kind of went the same route as I did, where we started in front of the camera and then got more into co producing and producing studio shoots and fashion shows. And when he found his mentor, I think is what helped him the most. I wasn't able to do that yet in the industry, but I'm hoping with getting into more of the producing work and putting these group studio shoots together for other models and other photographers that are trying to come up in the industry, I'm hoping to become a mentor in the future. Because I think a lot of models go through grief, and women in the entertainment industry go through a lot of grief, period, trying to make it to a certain level and really get taken seriously as an artist where you're the business, you're the brand. I think it's a lot harder for women than it is for men in the industry. No offense, guys. So I'm hoping to be able to change that and be part of the people that change that in the industry and mentor younger models and younger women, to see that they can do it without getting into things that they don't really want to do and working with people they don't want just to have certain chances for certain jobs.
Yeah, it makes sense. How's your take on that, Monte? Because, like I said, that imposter syndrome is real, real. And I know that even in your own life, there have probably been times that it was your own inner voice or voices of people in your family and your friend in circle that might have been saying, you can't do that. You don't have the qualifications and all along those lines. So, how do you deal with those inner critic voices, but also those outer critic voices?
Mm. Well, contrary to popular belief, I actually grew up very reserved. Like I said, I moved around a lot, so I lost a lot of friends, and I was always in a position where I have to meet new people, and so I was just watching and listening first. So uh, I kind of had to grow out of that because I realized that the shots that you don't take, you miss all of them.
Hmm.
And so those opportunities that I wanted, but I was too shy to say anything. I missed out on quite a bit of things, and I just got to a point where I'm like, I can't keep missing out just because I'm not trying hard enough. You know, they say faith without works is dead. I believe I have a lot of faith. Sometimes it shrinks, but you know, if you don't put in any kind of work, you can't expect your faith to pay off, you know. So I've just been trying to take those steps, stepping out of my comfort zone. Even coming down to meet you was a little out of my comfort zone. I had a couple of nerves about doing that, but you know, I recognize every step counts. And so, as Tiffany mentioned earlier, I want to piggyback off that. You know, sometimes when you start to accumulate experience, you start to see, oh, I can mix a song. This one sounds good. 10 of them might have sounded bad, but this one sounds good. I can do this. So I just got to keep going. And so that's kind of how I've dealt with it. I've, you know, had to prove to myself that I could do it. And in doing that, other people have started to see the proof. And similar to what she said, I had to gain some mentors. And then on the flip side, I've actually become a mentor for some people. And so that alone puts a certain responsibility on your back, you know, a weight on your shoulders that you feel that makes you stand up with your back straight a little bit, you know, because there are people looking up to me. So I know they believe in me. If they believe in me, I gotta believe in me, you know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In that same realm and everything like that, I know a lot of people are thinking that if you're in the arts, any form of the arts, whether it's fashion, whether it's music, whether it's comedy, or a number of other things, that you can't survive off of that alone. And you kind of alluded to that, Tiffany, and everything like that, because I've got some friends that are musicians that are also driving Lyft or Uber or driving DoorDash and things like that. So how are you able to survive on just the arts alone, or do you find yourself having to supplement your income with other things as well? Because that's one of the dilemmas that many artists have. I know that even some artists and musicians, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Monte, that you may have a band or a group and half of them are weekend warriors. I mean, they're only doing it as a hobby and only want to do it as a hobby, and they don't really want to make it a career. Whereas there are other people that want to make a career out of it, and that can create some tension within the group, whether that's a fashion group or whether that's a musical group and everything like that. Because it's a lot of groups are half and half. Half of them are people that are serious about the career and want to make it into a full-fledged career, and others are doing it as a weekend hobby and everything like that. So how did the two of you deal with that? Because that is a common conversation that I hear, that people have to take side jobs in order to make the ends meet, because we do have to survive and live. And in your case, Tiffany, you're a single mom, so you got to make sure the kids got food and everything like that, and that they are in the school and all along those lines. And then you've also got folks that are trying to figure out that survival aspect of it.
Well, for me, I know that, like I said, once I stopped doing the side hustles, because you can have multiple side hustles or multiple parts of a business and kind of had multiple hustles going on in your business at the same time, but it's still umbrellaed under one business. So when I stopped looking for other side hustles, I think, and really, like Monte said, having that confidence in myself to just flow, I didn't really do it as a, oh, if I don't get any gigs this month, then I'm not going to make any money. Nothing's going to happen. I put in the hours when it comes to working my emails, being on phone calls, creating my own promotional products, learning and doing the social media stuff, the same as if I'm in the office. So it's having that self-confidence to say, no, it's going to work. I'm going to make the money, and kind of speak those affirmations over yourself that I think helps, and looking for those right opportunities. Because like I said, we could be doing multiple things as an artist. As an artist, I don't like to put myself into a box and say, oh, I'm just a model, because I do modeling, I can act, I sing a little bit. I'm also good at producing and organizing and managing. So when it came to looking for these jobs and really treating it like a business like that, I make sure that I have that confidence in myself to say, no, it's going to work, whether I'm doing a couple of photo shoots for the month and then adding on, if I don't get any acting gigs, then adding on some promotional jobs or adding on some social media jobs that I'm going to do. All of that still kind of falls under the umbrella informally known as Tiffany. So I just make sure that the gigs that I'm doing align with my brand and my particular business that kind of fit my audience that I want it to go to. And the jobs flow. They just come in and start flowing after that. So I think having self-confidence and saying, nope, it's going to happen is really important.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And Monty, along those same lines and everything like that, and I'd love to hear your answers around this and even the previous question and everything like that. But there are a number of people that will hear your vision, and even Tiffany was kind of alluding to that and everything like that. And there are a number of folks that are what I call dream stealers and all along those lines. So I was just wondering how you deal with that because that is a very real thing in the industry. People that would try to steal your idea and run with your idea and not give you credit for it and everything like that. And then there's also a lot of people that don't have an understanding of show business is a business, and there's a reason that they call it show business, and they understand the show aspects. I know I have a good friend of mine that used to be the booking agent at the Carolina Theater, which is our art house theater here in Durham and everything like that. He used to tell me everybody's a promoter till it's time to cut the check because everybody has these great ideas for how to do a show and how to make a show happen and everything like that, but then they don't necessarily have the resources or a business plan or even a mission statement to go beyond that and everything like that. So I was just wondering, at what point did the two of you learn the importance of protecting your own integrity and also the importance of having a business plan and everything like that? So I'll start with you, Monte, but I definitely want to hear from Tiffany as well because I know that that is a real concern that people will run with your ideas and steal your ideas. You give them that opportunity.
Okay, I think to start with my answer for that question, I can kind of start at the last question and piggyback off of what Tiffany was saying. A lot of it is about getting the right opportunities. Uh, so as I mentioned, I'm in a transitional period, and I'm just at a point where I'm really trying to find the right opportunity for me because I feel like me personally or anybody, any individual, you're the only you. So I could present ideas, but there's no way that somebody's going to execute it exactly the way that I would. The key thing is just making sure that I'm in the right position and the work that I'm putting in on the daily or weekly basis is taking me towards that direction because then I'm going to execute it. But the more things that I get into that take me away from what I'm supposed to be doing, the less likely I feel it is to happen. So as I said, I haven't said this yet on the podcast, but I used to work at Hillside High School. I know you mentioned Andre Leon Talley earlier. He is definitely on our history wall. I worked there for about 4 years, and I really enjoyed the experience. I graduated from that school. It's the only school I ever went to for 4 years straight. Only place I worked at for 4 years straight. So obviously Durham and Hillside really have I have a connection with them in that community. But one thing about it was just that I was in the wrong position, and there was a limit to to I guess I'll say what I could get paid to do because I was doing a lot more than what I was getting paid to do. I was an instructional assistant, but I was still going to every classroom that I could visit and tapping in with kids that I knew could use a little, speaking to. Sometimes I would have to take them out in the hall, take them for a walk. Then I was also a basketball coach. I started a hip hop program there. I started a media program there. I was helping out different programs, different sports teams, the theater programs, whatever was needed. And people knew I had some kind of skill. They might have reached out to me. And there was just so much going on that it was taking me away from what I knew I was supposed to be doing. And that's the reason that I had to leave. And it hurt a little bit because I'm like my community, my name rings a bell there. But at the same time, I never left per se, but I had to make some space for me to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing because I realized even with having mentees, I'm telling them about the ideas, and it's not that they would steal them, but I don't have a chance to execute them if I don't have the time. If I'm not able to put time into it because I'm at the school till 11 o'clock for some kind of game or some event. And so in my transition, I just been using my skills to accumulate some kind, to get the bills paid and just make it to the next levels that I need to make it to. And some of those skills, running sound. So I run sound at a church. I'm plugging in speakers, setting them up, mixing the vocalist and the bishop for the stage, things of that nature. I DJ. Every now and then I'm booked for a performance, MCing or to host. So just right now I'm just bouncing on which skills bring the opportunities to me. And it's still a lot of leaning on faith. But I just feel like, as mentioned, when the right opportunities fall into your lap, well, they don't, sometimes they don't fall into your lap. You got to go out and get them. But when you come across the right opportunities and you use your time wisely, I feel like you don't really have to worry too much about the show business because you're already walking the walk instead of just talking the talk.
That makes sense. What's your take on that, Tiffany? And along those same lines and everything, I know that a lot of times people don't understand art management and everything like that, because there's also fashion management, and you have to learn that aspect of things as well, because there are those that are in the management position. I mean, there's an old saying that people will sometimes say about teachers, is that those that are can't actually make it, that they wind up being teachers. I know that's a stereotype that people have out there and everything with actors and a number of other things, but I have a great deal of respect even when um, our other guests were talking about Hillside. There's a major drama professor there that is now retired, Wendell Tapp, that is taking his students all over the world. He's taking them to Australia, he's taking them to China, he's taking them to a number of other places, and he is now running a local community theater company that was somewhat gifted to him by Dr. Norflet from Central and everything like that. So he's now running the Triangle Performance Ensemble, and they just did a play. He's had historically done a play about Christmas, but they just did a play. And I'm trying to remember the day, the title. I think it's Third Day, but it was about Easter and everything like that. So they just recently did that this like last month, if I remember correctly, the month that it was done and everything like that. But I just wondered your thoughts around how you deal with art management and that part of the conversation, because a lot of people don't understand the need to have relationships with these art management types as well, even in the fashion industry.
Absolutely. I think well, because I'm self-managed, I think I attribute my success at the point that I have to having the business management and learning the business management and operation skills first. I think if I didn't start my schooling career in that and learning about businesses and operations management first, I think it would have been a lot harder for me. So looking back on it now, I'm kind of grateful I got into it at the age that I did, because a lot of younger models and younger people in the industry, period, that want to get into the entertainment industry, they just see lights, they see stars, any kind of big money check that's thrown at them. They're like, yeah. But coming from being a business owner originally before I started, I think helped me a lot to focus more on that stuff. I was already looking at what contracts were going to look like, what a model release would look like. If you don't know how to put a portfolio together or build your own website and use WordPress or Wix, and those things that happen on the back end on the administration side, a lot of people forget about when they want to get into the entertainment business, because they love the entertainment part, but they don't know anything about the business part. So I think getting to know those business skills, really just having that knowledge and trying to learn as much as possible you can to manage yourself before it helps to find the right opportunities before you do just let yourself go under somebody with your business, your ideas, and your brand, because anybody can get picked up by a big label or a big agency really quick, but then your control as an artist is kind of taken away. And if you don't know those things, how to read those contracts, what certain terms are up front before you get into this, you're kind of at that person's mercy, that agent that's controlling you. So I think being able to know a lot of that and self-manage myself helped, because now I know what kind of people I want to work with. I know who those right opportunities are when they come. I can feel it. I can recognize it. And like Monte said, I'm only looking to go with those opportunities that fit and that are right for me. There's plenty going around in the world for artists. I know thousands of really talented artists that, like you said, may be weekend artists because they haven't hit that light bulb that says, okay, I'm going to put all my time into this. Because one of the things I love that Monty touched on was time being one of the most valuable things that we have on earth. Every millisecond, once we spend it, we can't get back. So having that conscious notion of saying, nope, I'm going to put my time, all of my time, into what I feel passionate about, what I feel is right for me, and not letting the world pull you in that other direction of responsibilities of what you think you should have, helps a lot. Helps a lot to recognize those right opportunities and get over all of that.
That makes a lot of sense. In that same realm, and I know that Rick Rossman, he used to work with Jimmy Kimmel and is a regular on our new show. And he's also got another show here that airs about monthly and everything like that. But he's also was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and won a lawsuit against them and everything like that. So he's one of our famous folks, along with Jeff Eichen, who does a whole show around weed advocacy and everything like that. But his sister, who is one of the writers or producers of Cheers, if I remember correctly, so we do have some folks on the network that are connected to uh, the industry and everything like that. But there is this notion that Rick brings up all the time that everybody thinks that they can make it, particularly in the fashion industry, because of social media and all along those lines. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not many others, that are on OnlyFans. OnlyFans has become a very popular way that folks are out there trying to get discovered in the fashion industry and everything like that. So I just wondering your take on this, because it does seem like even in the music industry that everybody thinks that they can just throw a YouTube video out there and they will be an instant success. But there has to be marketing even with the OnlyFans folks as well, and you just can't do an OnlyFans and think that you're going to be at the next big, you mentioned New York Fashion Week, that you're going to be at Fashion Week on a regular basis. But there are a lot of folks that are thinking all I got to do is create an OnlyFans site and I'll be good to go. And sometimes they are scantily clad and all along those lines, but they are being abused in some ways and everything like that. But I just wanted your take around this notion that it's so easy to do, whether that's in music or whether that's in the fashion industry with things like OnlyFans and YouTube and Instagram and a number of other sources that are out there as well.
Well, I think you have to really, like Monte said, decide what's really worth your time and keep strong to yourself and what really you're passionate about and what your morals are. I can tell you, I turned down a $400,000 contract from Bad Bunnies because they wanted to sign me as a model, but they wanted me to do an OnlyFans page and manage my OnlyFans. And I turned it down. And at that time, as a single mother, when you're struggling month to month to get the rent paid and the bills paid, you know what that can feel like, turning down a deal like that. It seems life-changing. Certain people see certain things that seem life-changing, but if everybody's doing it and it's so easy for everybody to do it, why is the economy the way it is now? Why are there so many of us still struggling? Like I said, I think people over glamorize what they see on social media and what they see out in the media period these days, but they haven't taken the time to really learn the behind the scenes process of those things. I know for a fact for social media with Facebook and with Instagram, because I do monetize on my pages. I don't really work it as a creator where I make a lot off of my pages, but just being able to have a Facebook and an Instagram page up and keeping it active and making whatever it is, couple bucks a month, some change from it, is a nice thing, I think, in itself. But a lot of people don't know that these content creators, these influencers that are working on those pages, again, they're making that their full-time job. It takes a lot for them to get up to the point where they're really making money off of it. I'm talking millions of views, a lot goes into it. They have to sit and be active on it all day, every day, like it's their job. So there's so much more that goes into it than what people glamorize when it comes to social media. I more learned to use social media as just a marketing tool. B2B business, door-to-door sales was something that we used to do, 20 years ago. Not that I want to age myself. Back in the day when people were in business, we used to be able to go out and buy each other lunches and go door to door and present each other with flyers and brochures. That became solicitation. So now when it comes to marketing, everything is on social media. So using it as a marketing tool, I believe, great. But glamorizing it and getting into if I get into OnlyFans, if I get into YouTube, I'm going to make a bunch of money. No, I don't think that's the way it really works. And I think people need to get more educated about all of those processes. If you want to do anything, you need to be educated about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Monte, along those same lines, I know that a lot of creatives are thinking that if they get a Substack or some of these other things, that they are going to be automatically monetized and everything like that. But I do know that there's usually a scale limit. You've got to make a certain amount of membership and a certain amount of subscribers before you even get to a certain level of money and everything like that. So I don't know that people always understand the nature of how these things work. And I'm just using Substack as an example. I can say the same thing about Muckrack and some of the Facebook sites as well and everything like that. But I just wondering, how have you been engaging in that social media space, and how have you been finding that work for you? And has that been something that has been a work in progress in terms of learning this work and everything and how it does work?
I think I use social media in a similar way that Tiffany does. I've learned to more so use it as marketing, and I want to piggyback off what she mentioned. Just people don't understand what goes into sustaining. And so I went to college 3 times. I only graduated once, but the only thing that could hold me long enough was music business, because I was like, oh, I'm definitely gonna use this. You know what I mean? I need this, and I want to make sure other people don't get taken advantage of as well. So, in understanding what goes on behind the scenes in the music business, I understood how important it is to, for one, establish your brand, and then for two, to establish your community. Because what I think matters the most, the internet is great for exposure, but community is great for experience. Like, you can watch your favorite artist on YouTube. They have his or her performance on YouTube somewhere, right? But chances are, if they're coming somewhere close to you and it's affordable enough, you want to go see them in person, because there's a feeling that you just can't escape, that occurs when the energy is just live and direct. And so I think it's definitely good for exposure. It's definitely good for marketing. I use it because I got people that I know that live in California or in Atlanta, and they're not always going to be able to come to every show that's local, right? But when I'm coming to their town, I'm making a video. Hey, Atlanta, I'm coming next week. Make sure you're ready on this date. And so I think it's definitely a useful thing, but it shouldn't be the end all be all. And people definitely should, they glamorize it right now. And there's certain things that you can't glamorize. It is helpful. But I think that once people really start to see the direction that tech is going in general, they'll start to appreciate the living experience a little more.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Just switching topic just slightly, but still staying in this whole conversation around entertainment and everything like that. I'm gonna tell you all a story that my brother used to tease me way back when I was a youngster and everything like that, because I used to be notorious for wearing too much brown and all along those lines. So my brother would say that I had way too much brown. I mean, I'm now very much of a jeans and slack kind of guy and everything like that. But he would tease me because I was wearing probably a little bit too much brown. So he would give me a little bit of criticism around that and everything like that. So as one that is studying the fashion industry and everything and involved in the fashion industry, what are the trends now? I know that there was a time that there were things that used to be popular that are now apparently making a comeback. I've even noticed some people bringing back some of the disco stuff that existed in the 70s and 80s and all along those lines. But I was just wondering, what are you seeing as fashion trends, particularly as one that has gone to New York Fashion Week? And I know a lot of people that would love to go to that. Sometimes it's out of people's expenses in terms of what they can budget and everything like that. But what is some of the fashion trends that you are observing, Tiffany, and what are some of the things that people should be looking for in that realm?
Now I've really seen the fashion industry, especially in runway, change to more authenticity. I think fashion is all about authenticity now, because people having the confidence to be authentic and wear whatever they want as an outfit now and feel confident in it and kind of strut their stuff is what's becoming the new thing. And I think everyone likes to see people feel confident and happy. But some things that I've been seeing in, the New York Fashion Week, recent shows and the new seasons have been a little out there. I've seen a fashion show where the entire line was pieces based on furniture, where the models were wearing actual chairs. So there's a lot of out there things that are going on right now in terms of fashion lines that people are creating. And I personally think it's awesome, because I think it gives everybody a chance to be different and more authentic, rather than, oh, we're just going to go buy the same dress, the same jeans, the same outfit because it's under a certain brand.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know one of the things that a lot of people get frustrated by, and I know that Monte can relate to this as well, particularly as one that knows who Andre Leon Talley is and others, is that a lot of folks, and I remember coming up in the era of Jordan and everything like that, but a lot of people are wanting the celebrity wear and everything like that, whether that's a celebrity perfume or whether that's a celebrity shoe and everything like that. And I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I'm not trying to run to get a Jordan, because those Jordans can be like in the hundreds of dollars and everything like that. So they're not exactly cheap and everything like that. And you're just basically getting the name of a celebrity that you may admire. I think Madonna's got a line, and there are a number of others. You mentioned Lady Gaga earlier and everything like that, and Bad Bunny, and I think they've all got their own lines and everything like that. But I'm just wondering, what is y'all's take on this whole notion of celebrity buy? Because even I've got two nephews. I don't have any kids of my own, but my oldest nephew will be graduating, and I'm sure that's one of the things he'll be wanting is some clothes to go off to college because he'll be going off to college after he graduates this year from high school and everything like that. So he's heading off to UNCG where he wants to study activism, politics, and everything along those lines to become an activist lawyer eventually and everything like that. But what is y'all's take on this notion of celebrity wear and how a lot of people, it's very expensive wear? I'm not knocking it because if they can afford it or they can get it out there and people will buy it, it's kind of like what the market will determine. But I'm also hearing a lot of people that are complaining about the state of the industry because a lot of people, and I've heard shows are being canceled because of the prices of tickets and everything like that. So there's the whole notion of the red dot and everything like that. So you have seen like the scales and tickets are being sold, and there's a lot of empty seats, and then sometimes shows will be canceled because there's not enough interest, and part of that is because of the discretionary funds that are not out there the way that they used to be because we're in a little bit of a tight economic time and everything like that. So how do y'all deal with that? Because I'm sure there are things that even you, because you mentioned that earlier, Tiffany, have wanted to go to, and you've had to like look at your budget and been like, I really want to go to that show, but or that fashion show. I really want to go see that musician, but I can't afford to pay the cost for what they are wanting to charge and everything like that.
I think there's always going to be fandom. And that the main thing goes off of fandom. That's just been in generations. I think people buy things of certain celebrities in particular just because, like Monte said, they have a certain vibe with the artist. I know my daughter does it. My daughter's 12 going on 13 now, and she's into K-pop. I watched K-pop Demon Hunters 1,000 times with my kids, and she had me, when McDonald's came out with the meals, go buy the K-pop Demon Huntrix meals. They see stuff like that, and they want to buy anything that they put out because it's a fandom thing. But in a way, I think that independent artists like Monte and myself and more independent artists are being able to use that to come up in the industry. You see a lot more independent artists and independent fashion designers making their own websites with their own merch and their own products that they're putting out. And people, because they become big fans of that company and that brand, because they've established themselves, like Monte said, within the community where they're well known just in their community, more real people can identify with that. More people feel a closer vibe with that. And I think they're more likely to say, okay, I'm going to buy something from this person, or I want to go see Monte's show because he's going to be in the city and I know that artist and I love him, and that's just how it works. I think it more has to do with a fandom thing than people looking at prices. I don't even think people look at prices. Sometimes they just go, I'm going to buy that because their face is on it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How much do you think it's important for organizations and people to have an understanding of the market they're coming into and everything like that? Because like I said, I did mention the Apollo show and they had a decent turnout, but it probably wasn't as big as it could have been because they were of thought that the people from Central and from Durham Tech were just necessarily going to come down the road because they had pulled up into town and everything like that. So I do sometimes wonder if people make assumptions about marketing when they are coming into a particular city because they are just having these assumptions that people are going to be enticed by them coming and everything like that. So I just wondered how important do you think marketing is, and are enough people doing a good enough job of marketing the things that they're involved with?
I'll say I think marketing is one of those challenges that we always knew would be a challenge, but for a while it probably seemed easy. When TV was the primary, we weren't always on YouTube or Instagram, advertisements all the time. They were almost entertainment for us. They really were. They still are. Super Bowl advertisements, super pricey. But with the abundance of ads that we run into every day, attention span is so short, and it's just almost hard to figure out what to say to get them to last long enough for you to actually give them the information. That's why we have so many commercials that have nothing to do with the actual product or service. But I think what's lacking is creativity. I feel like we're getting to a point where, you see the argument online now a lot. Artists are asking people to stop using AI art and just pay artists because everything's starting to look the same or similar, and it just has this. There's a lack of creativity to it. There's a lack of respect for the artistic side of it. To me, that's the one thing I think that some companies aren't doing such a good job of. But there are some that still investing in the artist, and I think they reap what they sow with that.
That makes a lot of sense. That brings up an interesting question, and all along those lines, because there's been a lot of conversations on this network about AI, and I know that there are some people that are fearful that AI will take their jobs. I mean, there's definitely been that conversation in the restaurant industry, but I'm also hearing that and having friends in the movie industry, and I imagine it's even the case in the fashion industry as well. So I'm just wondering, how concerned are the two of you about AI and AI eventually taking your jobs and everything like that? Because I mean, I've heard people even speculate that there will be eventually AI models, and you won't necessarily need the real models and everything like that. I think that I'm one of those people that believes in human nuances and that humans are able to do things that AI and robots can't necessarily do and everything like that. But there is this fear of AI kind of taking over a number of our creative jobs. I mean, that's part of what the strikes was about, and all along those lines of the movie industry. But I also understand that even in the fashion industry, there's some fears around what AI may wind up doing and everything like that. But what are some of the things you're hearing, Tiffany, about AI and its impact on the fashion industry? And I definitely want to hear Monte's thoughts around it, around the music industry. But what are some of the things that you're hearing about AI and its use in the fashion industry?
Well, I've experienced it a lot so far. I'm really not tripping about it because I've had a lot of people now, because I'm online on social media and I have a good following on my pages, that have made AI posts of me as a model, and made their own modeling pictures of me. And I've had people on my pages comment and message me in private and tell me, "Oh, I can't believe you did that." And yeah, I have to correct them and say, "Oh, that's not me, that's AI." Sometimes they can't tell the difference between what's a real photo that I've just put out from a shoot or what's an AI image. But for me, being in the industry myself and actually doing this full time as a professional, like Monte said, I think people are going to reap what they sow with it. Because as an artist, when I had photographers, or if I see people that only do AI images and only work with AI tools to create what they're creating, that takes away the realism and the authenticity of the creating for me. Because for me as an artist, and I think for most of us, that's what we're in it for, and that's what we consider ourselves artists for, is because of what we're creating, and what we're bringing to life with our own ideas. So for industry people, for example, for models, they can't take those AI pictures, and then if that's what they're submitting out to casting directors and putting out there on their pages and social media and getting people to think they look like, they can't do anything about it once they actually show up for the job. They can't fake posing once they're in real life. They can't fake looking a certain way or having a certain body once they're in real life. So I think you reap what you sow with that, because then that can take away from opportunities in your career. If you choose to go with more, I'm going to use the tech as a cheat way of creating, you're not going to be seen as a real authentic artist, and you're kind of cheating your way, I think, through the artistry of it and through really honing in on your craft and perfecting your craft as a real artist. So I don't think it's something that's going to last. I think real people in the industry that are really making the work are going to see right through it. There's only so much that these AI technologies can do. So if they start making AI film movies and AI TV shows, eventually it's going to get to a point where those fans and that audience are not going to connect anymore, because they're going to lose the realism and the emotion and the real creativity of it. Everything's going to be the same and saturated. And I don't think that's what the people really want for the future.
That makes sense. What's your take on AI from the music standpoint, Monte? And you've definitely been involved in that as well as some theater stuff as well. So, what's your take on AI and its use in this modern time?
I'm kind of with Tiffany. I just, I don't think I'm with you as well. You said there's some human nuances. Just, I don't think you can beat soul. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so if we apply it to music, I mean, there are people that make instrumentals or even put some kind of vocals onto songs using the AI technology. But my whole thing is, like I said earlier, I think that one of the most important parts is just that live experience. And at the end of the day, if you're not able to perform it live, what are we doing coming to a concert to watch TV together? To see a AI figure on the screen. So I think you can't really beat that. And as mentioned earlier, like, you know, face to face, word of mouth is still the number one form of marketing
Yeah.
as far as humans go. right? And for a performer, specifically artists, performing artists, a lot of times our biggest sources of income are live performances and then merchandise that we often can sell at the live performances, right? So I think that AI is going to sell a lot. It's going to do a lot, but I don't think that it's going to stop a true artist that's been working for, putting time in and continues to put time into building their brand and their community.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Tiffany, one of the major parts of a fashion industry is the photographer. I've got a good friend of mine that is a real estate photographer. He also did the photography when we did the Road to the Apollo, which was a contest that we did for about 12 years. It was me and my friend Captain Newborn Ray, who I mentioned earlier, and a number of others. But we started at A-Town and we traveled it around the state of North Carolina. I think other states may have picked it up as well and everything like that. But it's primarily a North Carolina thing where we got to jump the line. Anybody knows American Idol and Star Search knows that they're usually these long lines, but we had worked out an agreement with the Apollo that we were able to skip the line and have our winners go right to the front of the line, and they had some success on the Apollo and all along those lines. But Martin was our staff photographer, and he's definitely a great real estate photographer, but also done performance and sports photography as well. I think he'd done some concerts when he lived in Miami, many concerts, including some rockers and some R&B acts and a number of others. So we were actually just looking at his pictures a couple of months ago and everything like that. But I was just wondering, what is it that you look for in a photographer? Because whenever I think of models, I think of the photographer as the other end of that industry and everything like that. So what is it that you are looking for when you're looking and being approached by a photographer? So what do you make a good photographer, particularly a good fashion photographer?
Absolutely. I think the relationship with the model and photographer is what really makes the shoot with model photography. So when I work with photographers, I like working with photographers who are really worked on mastering their lighting and they're setting the scene of the shoot first. I got to recently work with a photography studio with a photographer, Mark Smith, in Florida, who I'm going to be co-producing and starting to work with more because he's just an amazingly talented artist. I don't even consider him a photographer. I consider him more multifaceted because of what he was able to show me, what he was able to do with this shoot. He has a studio that he works with where he built the sets for each part of the studio, and he hand creates our props and certain wardrobe things for the sets, and does as much as he can to do the setting right and do the filters right on the camera work, get the lighting exactly right, so that when the photos are actually produced, there's not a lot of editing that has to even be done. And I think those are the best types of photographers, the photographers that can really create what they're trying to create for the photo, but make it as realistic as possible without having to do so much Photoshop, without having to do so much editing with the tech. I think always inspires me the most. And I love working with photographers and artists like that because for me, like Monte said, it's all about the realism. It's all about the real creating. And I think the working with the AI and the tech and all of that, I think is kind of weeding out the real artists, from the artists that are just kind of like, oh, I might be good at this, I want to dabble in it, from the ones that truly have talent. So I like to work with photographers that truly have real talent like that, where maybe they don't even know how good they are, and they can capture a certain photo out in outdoor lighting just from hitting those certain angles and knowing what they're doing at any time.
That makes a lot of sense. Hey, Monte, along the same lines, but from the musical standpoint and everything like that, I know you've done some work in this field yourself, but what do you look for in a producer and everything like that? Because people are oftentimes shocked by how much talent we have here, and some of it is transplanted talent. I did mention that Nice Wonder went to Central, but also Terminator X lives here in North Carolina now and everything like that. Big Daddy Kane is still here in this area, and there are a number of others that have made this area home if they have left this area, because I'm thinking about G that went to Jordan, who I think lives in California, if I remember correctly, and everything like that, and Kane Smako, and a number of others that are connected, including the folks that folks may not know, like that, and they have interesting jobs. We're talking about side jobs and side hustles. But the Mike of the Jungle Brothers is also a plumber. So if you have a plumbing issue in North Carolina and you call your plumber, it may be Mike from the Jungle Brothers that comes and greets you and gets your plumbing fix and everything like that, because he is definitely part of the Jungle Brothers, but he's also a plumber by trade as well, and everything like that. But then that being said, what do you look for in a producer? Not necessarily them having another job, but what do you look for in a producer in terms of the music side?
I think the main things that I look for one is, I'm gonna look at their brand, and if that aligns with who I am, because I do believe that there's for hip hop in particular, because I largely make hip hop music. I dabble in other things, but part of my journey and my purpose is reprogramming the direction of hip hop and taking it back in a more positive direction. So I want to make sure that it's a producer that aligns with what I have to say, because otherwise they're gonna hear what I put on there and they're gonna say, "Eh, this not it. Write another song." But they want me to make some booty shaking music, and if I was feeling that, I might make a booty shaking song. But I'm probably gonna talk about something that means something to me, and if they can't get with that, we're probably not gonna work well together. Another thing I would look for is the sound. Each individual, as I mentioned earlier, they're the only one that can be them. So, what is unique about you that you bring to the table? And honestly, I had to learn how to produce myself. So once I found my own signature style, it there's still others that I'll hear their stuff. I'm like, I need that one, right? I'm That's what I'm looking for. What can you do that I don't do for myself? Because I don't just have discretionary income to just buy a beat from you just because. I need something that's going to grab me in a way that I wasn't able to do that yet, but you've already done it. And I feel like who you are and who I am, we could create something together that's meaningful, that will be impactful to the people that we're going to present it to.
Well,
Those
that
are
makes,
two of the main things for
that makes a
sure.
lot of sense. Along those same lines and everything in that space, and Tiffany kind of alluded to it with her situation that he had with Bad Bunny and that big contract that she turned down and all along those lines. But have there been times that you have turned down music information or music contracts because they were not aligning with what you were about? Because I do know that sometimes musicians will try to, or music companies will try to have you, as you just said, do the booty shaking songs or the songs that are very popular and all along those lines. And not everybody has integrity. And integrity is very important in the industry and
Hmm.
everything like that. So I just wondering if there have been incidences in your career, it's a fairly young career and everything like that, where you have literally had to turn down somebody because they were not having the same vision that you had, Monte. So has there been times that you've had what Tiffany had where you were like, so I'm not going that route because they are wanting me to basically sell myself?
Definitely. There's been recently it's actually a friend of mine that we grew up making music together, and he asked me to collaborate recently. And I said, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "I'm not gonna lie, I'm not talking about that." And I'm like, "Well, probably not this one." There's also been instances where I've made beats and I've recorded people as well. So, I'm in the recording process and I'm hearing what they've written, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I don't want to censor you, but on my work, we're not going to talk about certain things. And if it's detrimental to the community, it's definitely not happening." So I have had to set boundaries in that way for sure.
Yeah, those boundaries are very important and everything like that. How important do you think it is for, and this is for both of you, for artists to reach out to the young people and to be advocates for the young people? Because I know you are, Monte, and it sounds like Tiffany is as well, not just with her own kids, but just kids in general and everything like that. I know that my younger brother works with a term that I do not like to use this term all the time, even though I oftentimes find myself using it because I think it's a self fulfilling prophecy, this whole notion of at risk youth and everything like that. But I do sometimes wonder if we're not giving our young people enough credit for the artwork that they're engaged in, but also maybe giving them too much reign in some of the ways that we're letting them be abused by the industry as well. So I just wondered, how important do you think it is for us to have our young people have their voice heard in the entertainment industry?
Did you want to start, Tiffany?
Well, I think as a mom, I think it's extremely important. Extremely important, period, for us to advocate for our kids and for all kids in any industry throughout generations, recent generations. Now more things are starting to come to light, but I think a lot of people already knew what was going on in a lot of areas and the high levels of the entertainment industry, but it's been something for a long time that I think kids getting into the industry young have suffered through. It's a reason that I've been more careful about not putting my daughter out there for certain things, and really didn't start putting her up on social media until recently, because it's always a fear of crazy people out there in the world that are going to take advantage of these kids. And especially being a young artist, getting into modeling or getting into music, like you said, Mark, there can be people that offer them the world but take advantage of them because they don't have someone supervising them and they don't have someone really advocating for them at all. So I think what we all kind of touched on, mentoring younger kids that are not necessarily just your own kids, but younger artists, period, that you see is a really important thing for a lot of us. A lot of us that are coming up as independent artists, and we've seen the things that we've went through, and the opportunities that we saw as great opportunities, but may have turned out to be something that was meant for harm for us. It's important to educate younger artists that we see trying to do the same things that we're doing on those things and help them. I don't think anybody should be gatekeepers. I think there's enough gatekeeping going on in the industry as itself. And rather than competing with these younger artists, I think we should be building them up. I'm a very big believer in I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Time is so valuable to me. So using it the best way that I can while I have it is really important to me, and putting more of the focus into the younger generation that's going to be here, I think is more important to me than me building myself up to a certain level with my brand.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned it, and I definitely want to hear Monte's thoughts around this, but I'm a big fan of mentoring, and I think mentoring is something that people don't give enough credit for and everything like that. Baba Chuck Davis was a advocate of African dance, and he didn't have any kids of his own, but he had a lot of kids that he was a mentor to, not just in the dance community, but in the arts community in general and everything like that. So I just wanted your thoughts, because you kind of alluded to it, Tiffany, about the importance of being a mentor, because I don't think that we always give credit to that mentoring role. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of mentoring, but I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, Monte, as well, because I've just in the brief time that we met, it sounds like you're trying to do a lot of mentoring as well. So how important is that mentoring aspect? Because like I said, I don't have any kids, but I have many that I mentor and that I try to follow what they're doing and try to encourage them in their life and everything, whether it's through this podcast or whether it's just in person-to-person meetings and everything like that. So how important is mentoring, no matter whether you have kids or don't?
I don't have kids, and that's part of the reason I wanted Tiffany to speak first, because I think that's just important. That perspective is important. As a parent, she's telling us her kids need consideration, and there's a lot of parents that feel like that, and some that don't, but they should, and because they don't, we have to. And I think that what I've realized the most working in schools and in after school programs and summer camps is that even the toughest kids, when they can find someone that truly cares about them, will open up, and all of a sudden they're a completely different person. But it's only because there was somebody there to guide them, that cared enough to take them in the right direction, not just any direction. And that's one of the big things for me with music. uh, I changed my music actually. There was a point in time, which is why I would get asked to make certain songs sometimes, but there was a point in time where my music was different. And then my younger brother, I got three brothers, all younger. My middle youngest brother came up to me one time when he's like 10 years old, and he's like, "Dad said your music was better when you didn't curse." And I'm like, like, why would you tell my younger brother that? But it made sense. He's a parent, right? And that's my brother. Somehow, one way or another, he's probably gonna come across my music. And if I'm just being ridiculous, I'm not considering him. I'm not trying to guide him. And so I had to change my mentality. Hey man, I need to make music that anybody can listen to. That's why my mission statement is to bridge generational gaps through storytelling. I feel like anybody should be able to listen to my song and be connected to it in some way, whether they're old, young, black, white, from America, from Spain, right? It shouldn't matter. If you can understand what I'm saying, you should be able to relate to it in some way, and you should take something of value from it. That's kind of my focus. And I think that the more people, or just the more artists and or people in general working towards guiding the youth, the better our future will look. Because it's cliche to say that the youth is the future. But like I said, faith without works is dead. So if we're saying that, but we're not actually trying to take kids in the right direction, nobody's putting in effort because, oh, I have to be at work and I have to pay these bills. Well, all they're going to see is I have to be at work and I have to pay these bills because they're going to take after what we do. They only know what they see. They only know what they're exposed to. And so another thing that I want to mention is just exposure, exposing them to different things, workshops, trips. As you mentioned, Mr. Tab, man, I remember when I went to Hillside, he was taking kids to China, and I'm a kid, and so I'm like, man, I'm not in theater, but I wish I could go to China, right? But I'm sure that experience alone changed all of those students' lives. That's super important stuff to me. So
That
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Just really quick, and we'll get ready to wrap up shortly and everything like that. But how is the importance, and you kind of alluded to it, Tiffany, of cross-cultural communication? Because I know that the Haytime Center, which I mentioned earlier, is a primarily African-American center, but we've had shows there with Candlelight. We've had shows there with Indian groups, like from India and everything like that. And we've even had some shows with some Latin American groups, including the one gentleman that was from the Latin American community that was also from the LGBTQIA community as well and everything like that. So I just wondered, in your own lives, how important is it for us to have cross cultural communications and cross cultural performances, even if you're at a center that may be geared toward one group or another and everything like that? But how important do you think it is for us to do these cross cultural dialogues?
I think it's extremely important. For one, sometimes you don't even find your people within the specific group that you're looking at. So it's important in that way. I think it's also important in that when we talk about peace, it seems like not a lot of people talk about it now, world peace, because there's so much going on. But if we truly want that, well, we're only really going to get that if we're communicating with each other, because we leave it to the government and hey, we see what's going to happen. But if we're connected from within, what's on the outside doesn't matter so much. There's some companies I'm sure that know some of the things happening is not that's not us. We didn't necessarily vote for that. We didn't know about it, or maybe we just, there's things going on. But when we communicate with each other, whether it's through music, whether it's through fashion or through movies, all of these things play a huge role in understanding one another. And so, because if we really look at it, this is mass communications. We're talking about mass communications. So when we look at communicating on the more than just national but universal level, if we're saying the right things, we're playing our part in bringing the world closer to world peace. And I feel like the more people that take those steps to communicate with each other, because when we don't understand each other, that's where most conflict comes from. But the people that can empathize, they can listen and try to understand, well, this isn't necessarily what we do where I'm from, but there must be some reason that they do it. People that can be that open, once more people are like that, we start to come to a place of peace. And it might not be a perfect peace, right? It might not be everywhere, but the more peace we have, the more people we have that can lead by example. And the more people that lead by example, the more people that follow that example.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Tiffany, along those same lines, and Monte definitely mentioned two words that are very important to me and everything like that. When one of them is the notion of finding your tribe, and your tribe may be of various tribes. It might be the tribe of similar people of a similar ethnicity, but it might be people that are of different cultures and everything like that. And he also mentioned a word that I think a lot of people give lip service to, but they don't always understand the word, which is the notion of empathy and everything like that. So I just wondering your thoughts around both of the notion of finding your tribe and also the notion of being empathetic.
I think what Monte said, I completely agree with and was perfect. I think we do. Cross cultural is crossing our cultures and educating ourselves with each other's cultures is very important. I think to portray in media, to portray in social media, to put out there in the world, period, because social media is great for that. It is great for the fact that it allows everyone to connect from all different parts of the world, and we can have more cross culturalism and people sharing their cultures more with each other, just being able to be over the internet and be online like that with each other. I know I've met some amazing people on pages like Facebook and through social media from the Philippines, from places in Africa, from places in India, Pakistan, all over the place that follow me and comment on my stuff and tell me about how things are different in their countries. And like Monte said, I think if we just are those type of people that sit back, a lot of people have tunnel vision. I would say a lot of people have tunnel vision and are so focused on, oh, me, my life is like the only one going on right now. But when we don't have tunnel vision, then we can't sit back and complain about how bad the world is getting if we're going to do that. If we're going to have tunnel vision and we're only going to think about ourselves and not be active in trying to make that change, in trying to spread that culture and create community and learn about other people's cultures, then we can't really sit back and complain about how bad the world is because we're not actively doing anything about it ourselves. So I think it's really important for people to be active in trying to share each other's cultures and understand each other's cultures more. And another thing that Mani touched on that I thought was great was something I believe is that we're not all the same as our own culture. You know, I'm a Latina, but I know a lot of Latina cowgirls that are more, country. And into that side, I know some Latinas that are total punk rockers and, that's their people. So finding people that are more, have your similar interests and your similar passions and want to do some of the similar things that you want to do, I think that's the easier way to find your people than just going with particular people that are of the same race or the same cultural background as you.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned that because I am friends with Reese Palmer, and Reese Palmer actually done a couple of songs about being a country girl because she's definitely a country musician, even though she's from this area and everything like that. And she's actually got a podcast, I think it's called Color Me Country, if I remember correctly, and everything like that. So even though she's an African American woman and grew up and she lives in North Carolina now, but grew up outside of the area and everything like that, she is a big fan of country music, and she also talks to just like Rihanna Gadden does about the history, because a lot of times some of the music that is given credit to other cultures has its roots in Africa and everything like that. So Rihanna Gideon talks about the origin of the banjo and everything like that, and she did their second year of the Banjo and Biscuits Festival here in Durham, North Carolina, and everything this year and everything. But she definitely does some good conversations about folks understanding that some of these instruments that are seen as country instruments are actually instruments that came from the continent of Africa and everything like that. So she's a researcher in addition to being a great musician. Both I'd say Rihanna and Reese are that as well. So to your point about there being Latin punk rockers and Latin country musicians. So there's a lot of folks in that space and everything like that. As we get ready to wrap up and everything like that, there is a video that I'm going to play about education. I'd love to hear y'all thoughts around education and the importance of education. And we've kind of alluded to that before. But before we get to that, one of the things that I was curious about and all along those lines is I mentioned earlier, and I'm hoping to get her on any upcoming edition. I'm hoping she might be on this one. But Joe Gore is an aerialist and everything like that. But I mean, Joe, I'm trying to think of Rose. Joe Rose is her last name. Joe Gore is a musician that I also know, so they have the same first name. But what is a hobby or an interest that y'all have that people might be surprised to know is a hobby or interest of yours? I used to joke that a ex of mine tried to get me to go skydiving, and I'm sorry, but to me, that is not something that you do. You use planes to go from point A to point B. You don't fall out of them, but that's just me. I'm not trying to do that. There might be others that would go for that. I have thought about going whitewater rafting, and I have thought about doing some other things that might have some risk. My brother had even done bungee jumping when he was much younger. This was before my nephews were born, and they will be turning 18 and 17 this August and everything like that. But what are some interests that the two of you have that folks might be surprised to know is an interest of yours? So I think I'll end with Tiffany, but I'd love to hear yours first, Monte, and then end with Tiffany. But what is an interest that folks might be surprised to know is a hobby of yours or an interest that folks may not know about?
I guess I would have to. That was actually a difficult question, but I'll say one, I'm kind of getting back into enjoying culinary arts and just understanding more about cooking nutritional meals that still taste good. Uh, and then the second one, I would say this might not be so surprising, but nature. I really love animals. I love plants, and I like to be outside.
And I can relate to nature because I have discovered this app. I sometimes will go out and listen to it, but it's Merlin, which will let you hear the birds and identify the birds. It comes from Cornell University, but it will actually identify them and even tell you what their songs that they're singing and what's going on with them. But I've been involved with that app now for less than a year, but it is a fun app. And sometimes you're surprised by what birds are in the area. Like yesterday, I think I heard a grand osprey, which you usually think of as being like a beach bird and a very big bird and everything like that. But it somehow managed to migrate into our area and all along those lines. But I am a big fan of nature and everything like that. So, what is an interest of yours, Tiffany? And then I'd love to hear from both of you before we get to that education video, the importance of faith. And to me, faith is not necessarily religion, because I consider myself spiritual more than I consider myself religious and everything like that. But before we get to that, what's a hobby or an interest of yours, Tiffany, that folks might be surprised to know is an interest of yours?
A lot of people might be surprised to know I'm a big hip hop lover. When it comes to music genres, rap is my thing. So a lot of people may not know that I like to rap and I like to write. I write a lot songs. Like I said, I always sang and danced and loved to do music. But it was never something I felt confident enough, like, oh, I'm a really good artist or I'm a really good singer. I actually had a song that I sent to a producer friend of mine that's a music artist, and I had just recorded it on my phone as a little audio. And I had written it and just recently, so I sent it to him, and he turned around and put it on a beat and actually showed me what my voice sounded like recorded for the first time. And it inspired me to start writing more again, because I've always written songs since I was a kid, into writing songs and writing music. And I used to write notes and music notes and write songs that way when I did chorus and going through music when I was in school. But yeah, it's not something that I put out that I do full time or anything.
Well, we might have to get a collaboration.
You see, that sounds like collaboration in the works and everything like that. So there might have to be a Tiffany and Monte collaboration on a song or something along those lines. But how important is spirituality to both of you? I am a big supporter, and I do love going out for nature, and not necessarily when it's 95 degrees, but I do enjoy those nature walks and everything like that. But how important is that spiritual connection to both of you?
I would say it's pretty important to me. I don't want to say I lead with it, but like in all honesty, I kind of do. And you were talking about how important is faith to us. I think that's kind of been the chapter of my life that I'm in right now. I was reading a book yesterday and I came across a quote. I can't remember it word for word, but it was just talking about how optimism is acceptance of uncertainty. And so when you think about faith, my experience as of late has just been, man, there's situations coming about that the average person would stress out about, and I should probably be stressing out about it. But there's also this quote that I love. It's if you pray, don't worry. If you worry, don't pray. Now I wouldn't say I'm very religious at this point, but I do believe that there's some sort of higher being, right? And there's an energy that's connecting us all. And I feel like when you lean more into just that uncertainty and understanding, yeah, it seems like life is all bad right now, but that mustard seed of faith, that little bit of optimism, everything's gonna work out how it's supposed to. Somehow it miraculously does. And so I think that just the proof of that in my life over and over has put me in a position where I don't stress as much, which is good because stress is a killer. Stress will kill you. But it also keeps me in a position where I'm able to inspire others because they're able to recognize, well, he's still calm with all this going on. And then all of a sudden the whole situation can calm down in some instances. So I think just leaning into that has been a chapter of my life that I'm currently in. It's super important for me.
That makes sense. What about you, Tiffany? How important is faith in your own journey and everything like that?
I absolutely lead with it. Yeah, I think I consider myself more spiritual than religious. Like Monte, I do meditate every day. Meditation has become a big practice for me over the last 5 years. I started with guided meditations and then started getting more into just self meditation, where even if it's a few minutes of me just sitting outside in the sun, absorbing the sun rays and just closing my eyes and meditating for a few minutes in solitude, it does really help me kind of navigate my life and keep that positive mindset. Because as Monte said, I think everything is about positive outlook and alignment. I believe personally that we manifest a lot of things for ourselves. And I think when we're always stuck in a negative mindset, of course, it's going to tell the universe that, and life is going to turn out pretty negative. But sometimes, like Monte said, when you get to a point that you're so strong in your faith in yourself, I think it's a lot of faith in yourself as a person, not just faith in a higher power, but faith in yourself, in your own soul, that you really can get through anything. And when you have that confidence to say, okay, I know this may look really bad this month, but I'm going to be okay. That's life changing. That's a life changing feeling. It does. I personally have seen it happen in my life multiple times. As examples, it does create a life of abundance where I'm not saying we don't have to go out and work for things ourselves, but things naturally flow and attract the right opportunities and the right things that are meant for us when we stay more in that positive mindset and stay with having faith, where even when we don't know what's going to happen, we just know that everything is going to work out. I have a model friend of mine who did the pageant with me, and she put it in a way that was so great. She said, Tiffany, I have so much faith. And, she's a firm believer in God. And she said, I have so much faith in God and that everything's going to work out for me. It's like if I only had $5 left in my pocket and I wanted to go to McDonald's and I want to get a McChicken. And she said, most people that don't have that strong of faith would say, oh, no, but what if I need my $5 for something else? People with that kind of faith, like I think Monte has and I have now, are going to say, I'm going to go get my McChicken. I'm going to go get my McDonald's because I know that I'm going to make that $5 back. Maybe I'll make $10 back in an hour, but something's going to work out and it's going to happen. So I'm going to go do what I want to do.
Right. That makes a lot of sense, everything like that. You kind of alluded to it, Monte, with that book and everything, but who are some of your own personal mentors and everything like that? So who are some of the people that have mentored you in your life, whether it's a author or whether it's a person that might even be your mom and dad? I know that I'm a big fan, and even at my age, in my 60s, still get advice from my own mom, who's in her 80s, and still will sometimes talk to dad as well. So I consider both of them to be mentors, but I also have other mentors as well. But I'm just wondering, who are some of the people that are the mentors in your lives?
I would definitely have to start with my parents for sure. My mom and my dad. My dad was a life coach. And so growing up, I was kind of like his test dummy. He was just, all the books he was reading, just plant it and see if it grows. So there's a lot that comes from that. My mom definitely gave me a lot of emotional intelligence. Um, as far as authors, or I'll say two of the authors that really helped put things in perspective for me were Walter Dean Myers and W.E.B. Du Bois. Those are two of my favorite writers just because of their approach to it. And it felt like they were talking to people like me and saying, hey, we got work to do. And as far as people in life, when I worked at Hillside, I was able to work under Dr. Logan, Dr. William Logan. He was a great mentor, super patient. And I learned a lot just from watching him and how he interacted with people and his work ethic. I mean, I told you guys earlier, sometimes after a basketball game, we might be at school 11 o'clock, me and the head coach leaving the building, and we walk by his office and he's still there. He lives in Raleigh. Hillside is in Durham. That's a 35-minute drive at least. And he's still working. So, I mean, watching that dedication, that was a blessing. Mr. Tab, I've been able to watch him a little bit. I was there as he was on his way out, and just seeing how he moved and what he shifted into and how he's still aligned with purposeful things. I think having people around like that to watch really showed me different paths, but paths that all lead to a road that I'm trying to walk.
It makes sense. What about you, Tiffany? Who are some of your mentors? And by the way, I do like that W.E.B. Du Bois quote because that's one of the quotes that I talk about on my history talks at Haytime, because he had this whole notion of had a whole self-contained environment where you could literally be born in Durham at Black Wall Street, and you could even die in that area, but you could also get your suits made and didn't have to go to Man's World, and you could also have a mattress made in that community as well, so you didn't have to go to Cyril's and everything like that. So that's something that I talk about, is that self-contained kind of environment. It was part of the Black Wall Street and everything like that. So that's one of the quotes. It's also a quote from Booker T. Washington as well, but that's one of the quotes that's there at the building and everything like that. But who are some of your own mentors?
I didn't really have mentors growing up, or recently in my career. I really had to mentor myself a lot. I was a tri-state baby, inner city kid, and like Monte, I moved around every school year until 10th grade. I didn't even go to the same school. I graduated high school was the first school that I went to that I was in for more than one school year. So I didn't really get to stay in one place for a long time and didn't have that kind of guidance growing up. So I think I did more what younger kids do now, where I look to celebrities. Um, I idolized people like Cher and Taraji P. Henson. When I fall in love with an artist, I like to get to know their story. That's what makes me really fall in love with them. Is not just when I first see their art, but when I actually start research. I'm a researcher. I research everything. So when I start going back and researching them and seeing their story, that's what really makes me relate to them. Even with some newer artists, like that new artist Dax that's out, some of his songs I came across and were like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. But it was really his come up story. I think stories like that, independent come up stories for artists and entrepreneurs, really is what mentors and inspires me the most, because it helps me feel not alone and feel like there are others out there that I know that are trying to do the same things as me. And maybe some of them were successful, maybe some of them failed at certain times, but they keep going and they didn't let anything stop them and tell them no. I remember Taraji P. Henson became my idol because the first time I heard about her story was before I even became a mother. So then getting a chance to be a single mother myself and have to make that decision of, do I want to go into the entertainment industry as a single mom with my life circumstances right now? There's so many self doubts and so many societal doubts and no's that are going to be put on you. So hearing her story, how she, just packed up and moved to LA with her kid and a couple $100s in her pocket, when I had my moment to do that, to really decide, okay, I'm going to go for it with formerly known as Tiffany. I'm not going back to the healthcare world. That's what inspired me. That's what inspired me. And I packed up my car. I was leaving a bit, getting also too, I was going through a bad relationship at the time. So I literally packed up everything I could in my car with my two kids and I drove to Maryland and moved and just started over in a completely new place where I knew no one. And it was from, being inspired by idols like her to me that really took a chance on themselves and made it themselves.
That makes a lot of sense and everything like that. As we end and everything like that, one thing I get all the guests to do on all of these shows, particularly the online dinner party and everything like that, is to tell how they can be contacted and to give a message of positivity. Because Pod TV is a worldwide network, so we have listeners from places like Bangladesh, Australia, India, and a number of other places around the world that watch this show either live or in the reruns, because it does air several times during the course of the month and the year and everything like that. So that's one of the things I do call it my own personal mission and everything like that. But what message of positivity would you give to our global audience? And also, if you can tell folks how they can reach you if they've got projects or if they are interested in having things that are going to be working with you and everything like that. So just tell folks how they can reach you. I'll start with you, Monte, but then definitely go with Tiffany at the end and everything like that. So how can folks reach you, and what way would you be contacted in your message of positivity?
So I'll start with my message. My message, this is a message that well, I got two messages. The first one is simply every step counts, even the small ones, right? Because let's say you have a payment and you're missing 5 cents. There's some networks where you won't be able to make your whole payment just because you're missing that 5 cents. So don't skip the small steps. Don't underrate the little things that you have to do just because the big things seem to take more time or more attention. Every step counts. As long as it's in the right direction, you'll be okay. The second thing I want to say is there was a point in time where I majored in architecture, and one of the first things that they teach you is that in order to build a new building, they're first going to go ahead and gut the ground. They're digging up dirt, and they're going to stick stakes in. Now, let's say this building is on a hill. The building's on a hill, you stick the stakes in, you build on top of that, and it rains. Well, now there's a mudslide, erosion, you're sliding down the hill. What they actually do, they dig up the dirt, they stick the stakes in, and they pour cement. They pour cement because it's very important to have a solid foundation to build on top of. Because now, when it rains, you're ready for the storm. Um, if you're looking to find me, I actually go by the name Waddy. Most people know me by Waddy the Shepherd or DJ Waddy Z. I do have a website you can find me on. It's waddytheshepherd.com. WATTYSHEPHERD.com. And on my social media, you can find me at Waddy and a Genius. WATTYINAGENIUS.
Yeah. And Tiffany, how can you be reached and your message of positivity as well?
My message of positivity would be you are stronger than you know. You are stronger than you know. And as long as you have you and you stay believing in you, you have everything you need. That would be my message.
Yeah. And how can you be reached?
Self-belief.
Yeah. And how can you be reached as well?
And I can be reached. My main page is on Instagram at formerly known as Tiffany. Formerly known because I'm formerly known as Tiffany Rodriguez. But to my real peoples, I'm just Tiff, guys. Actually, a lot of my family, my childhood nickname is Stifler. Not before American Pie came out, so no jokes about that. But I'm just Tiff. But you can find me at Instagram at formerly known as Tiffany, or also with UBO Entertainment with my publicity management company, UBO Entertainment out in California, also on Instagram.
Cool.
Can you spell
Appreciate
UBO?
that and everything.
UBO Entertainment.
Is it just the
Yep,
letters
just
UBO?
UBO. Yep, just the acronym UBO Entertainment. Yep, UBO Entertainment, UBO Magazine. They're who I currently signed with for my publishing. And as my publicity agent right now, I'm not currently signed with an agency. I'm self-managed. So my main platform page is Instagram. But actors and casting directors can also always find me on Backstage and IMDb.
Yep. And Eris is a wonderful lady, the founder of UBO and everything like that. Because I know she brought me some other guests as well and everything like that. So I'm going to close with this video that I play usually at the end of every show. It's about the importance of education and the importance of education leaders, but not just the typical teacher, which we've been talking about, but also the support staff, whether that's a guidance counselor, the cafeteria worker, the janitor, or a number of others as well. So before I play this video, and that'll be the last video, that'll be the closeout of this show, maybe share a little bit about, and I'll start with you, Tiffany, this time, and everything like that, the educators that has been important to you, or maybe somebody that was a support staff, maybe it was a guidance counselor. I know my grandmother, when she was living on my mom's side, was a cafeteria worker and everything like that. So just share somebody in your life that might have been important in everything, because sometimes the janitors are actually the ones that know more about the school than anybody does and everything like that. So I just wondered your thoughts around somebody that might have been a support person in your life when you were going to these various schools.
Lynn Mariani was my musical theater and dance teacher at my college when I went to Wilkes University. I graduated in Florida and ended up graduating from Indian River State, but I started in Wilkes University in PA. And again, at the time, I had that passion kind of hidden in the background, so I minored in dance and theater instead of doing it as a full-time thing. And when I did my first classes with her, she was the dance instructor for one of the classes or several of the classes for the music and theater program at that school. And she really inspired me. And she gave me my first solo and a big, dance performance there. And she really made me see my own talent as a dancer. I wish to God that I would have took up her advice back then. I feel like a lot of people get so programmed. And that's why I advocate for kids and the youth. We have been so programmed by society in the ways that we should go and the certain things that we should want in life, rather than people advocating for young people just finding their own path and finding their own and pursuing their own passions and their own things that they want to do. And I think she was one of those people who really did that for every student that came into her class.
I appreciate that. Monte, you mentioned some earlier, but if there's anybody even in the resource field or the janitors or even the guidance counselors or cafeteria workers, other than those that we've already mentioned, like Wendell and others, that were really impactful on you in terms of education and all along those lines?
I think at this point, there's just so many that I could name because it went from teachers to counselors to co-workers, just seeing how much effort some people really put in. Um, but I think the biggest influence that I think really changed my life had to be in first grade when I had those two teachers, Miss Mitchell and Miss Hatchett. I would finish my work early before other students. This is when I was in Caswell County. And I would just play with my hands, turn them into characters. They fight each other, they play basketball, they're spiders, whatever, right? And I don't know if it was distracting or they just saw something else in me. And so one day when I started playing with my hands after finishing my work, they're like, hey, try this. They gave me a notebook, they gave me a pencil, they said, write some stories. And just ever since then, I lost myself in it. Literally that first day, I wrote a story about my parents. But after that, I just wanted to write every day. So every day, once I finished my work early, I'm writing. And it evolved in me trying to write books and scripts and raps, So I think that's been one of the most influential things. It really pushed me into communication, effective communication too.
Well, I appreciate that, and we're going to end with this particular video and all along those lines. It comes from Oklahoma, but I've thoroughly enjoyed having both of you on, and I always get somewhere between 2 to 4 guests, and we do just like we've been doing on this show. We just learn from each other, and we have these authentic conversations. That's what the Online Dinner Party, which I've now been doing on Pod TV for about 5 years, is all about. So it's people from different parts of the world learning from each other, whether they're in the both on the East Coast, as is the case this time, or whether they're from maybe somebody from England and somebody from LA and all along those lines. But it's always just enriching conversations where we're learning from each other. And sometimes guests make even return trips. I hope that both of you will make a return trip as well at some point or another also. But this has been a fun conversation, and I've definitely learned a lot about both of you. And definitely I think our audience has as well. And like I said, it will be aired several times in the course of the week on Pod TV, both on the YouTube channel. And now I'll also cut up some of these into shorts and putting those on my Instagram and TikTok accounts as well. So you'll be seeing those probably start popping up probably either tomorrow or Friday as well. But definitely I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I'll be tagging you in those because they make the clips, StreamYard does, and everything like that. And then I just put them out, the ones that seem best and all along those lines. But I do tag the folks that are involved, particularly those that have Instagram and TikTok accounts. So we'll do that. And I've thoroughly enjoyed having both you on, Tiffany, and you on, Monte, as well. And hopefully I'll see you on some future editions as well. But this has been a fun conversation. I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed conducting it and all along those lines. So it's been a fun conversation, and we're going to get on out of here with this particular commercial and everything like that. And like y'all were saying, y'all may wind up doing some collaborative work because it sounds like there was some Tiffany and Monte work together and everything like that. So we'll have to see whether that happens. That might be one of the next shows where we find that they've done some collaborative work and all along those lines. So on that note, we can check out this education piece and get on out of here. But this has been fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
It's been an honor.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark.
No problem.
I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop, non-stop. I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people. So we thank you, I thank you for being such a dedicated supporter to this movement for the Teachers Appreciation Foundation. I thank you.
I won't fold.